Fucking curse. We'll be bound together for eternity. Dash. Come on, hurry up. Are you sure you want to do this? He always stuck with Atsumu, as long as he could remember, just constantly letting himself get dragged all over, although this time around he was nervous and skeptical about what would happen if he went along with the latter. Course I do. It's definitely a rumor though. Then why go and test it out? To prove people wrong. Why else? I wanna go home. After. Atsumu grabbed Sakusa's wrist and started leading him towards the gate of the school building. The only reason Atsumu was so fired up was because of a rumor going around their school. A curse. A musical curse, that is. Whoever is to play or hear the cursed music sheet would be cursed for eternity. Are you scared? Omi. Atsumu turned back around and faced Sakusa with a sly smirk on his face. I am not. Then. Stop complainin'. I just don't think it's the best idea. Sounds scared me. When they walked off of school grounds, Atsumu wrapped his arm around Sakusa's shoulder. I said I'm not. Then come with me. Sakusa sighed and wrapped his arm around Atsumu's waist. Atsumu put his free hand to his mouth and started giggling. You literally asked me to do this. Stop it. It's become somewhat of a habit for Sakusa to put his hand around Atsumu's waist when they start walking, or in other cases vice versa. I can't help it. Of course you can. Whatever. Atsumu moved his hand off Sakusa's shoulder and around Sakusa's neck. Do you always have to be so touchy? Course I do. And plus, you like it when I'm feelin' you up. Sakusa put his hand to his face and looked away, with his face heating up. Atsumu was something else. Literally the dirtiest high school student he'll ever know. I do not. You don't need a lie. We all know you do. We. Yes we. Who the fuck is we? Me and everyone else, of course. Okay, who is everyone? The two both looked at each other with an irritated face. It doesn't matter, dumb fuck. Exactly, there isn't anyone, you fucking dummy. Jeez, so rude. Irensha. You started it. Just as Atsumu was about to reply, his phone buzzed. He took it out of his pocket, although he kept his phone at the same level as his hip. The screen lit up, showing new messages. He pressed his lips in a thin line as he opened the messages with face recognition. I bet you're too much of a coward to check it out. Me and the group already did. We have the music sheet. Deep down he knew no one did it. They would never, despite the fact that they are all cowards themselves. He knew it was true that they got a hold of the cursed music sheet by illegal methods. Who is it? Atsumu looked up at Sakusa, who was staring right back at him. He felt pathetic dragging Sakusa down the same path as him, but in his heart he feels like everything is just a rumor with no meaning in its words. Just my other friends. Oh. Alright. Are you going to head home now? No. I want the music sheet. Yeah, and where's that? They got a hold of the music sheet. You're not serious. Sakusa had always believed the cursed music sheet was real when he first heard of the rumor. He isn't someone who would dive into music head first, but it's a part of his life. He knows how to play different types of guitars, and learning how to play was amusing for him. Music brings him into another world, so there is no doubt it can bring people into different worlds as well. However, those worlds do not have to be pleasurable. Music can chain people to hell, make them pay for the sins they've committed. They probably just made a fake paper just to scare us. All we have to do is play the notes and prove them wrong. A lie. Atsumu felt like it wasn't the case, even though the rumor sounded like a load of shit. He wanted Sakusa to be with him through everything, but why was he going through all of this? Because his pride was simply too fucking large. If you say so. Let's go pick it up then. Atsumu flashed a smile at Sakusa and he returned it. The biggest mistake of their lives is ahead. The one thing they'll regret the most. Dash. The duo walked together to Atsumu's friend's house. They stayed in a comfortable silence. It was normal for them at times. When they arrived, Atsumu knocked on the door. Seconds later the door flew open with a male with a nervous smile on his face. Hey. So, I wanna see. My parents are fighting. So I can't let you in right now. Also, we only got a hold of the guitar. Ankoku made the music sheet visible and pushed it on Atsumu's chest, not making the symbol show, only the blank page on the opposite side. It's cool, I understand. But seriously? Why no, I don't know jack shit about the guitar. So you're not up to the challenge? I'll prove you're wrong. Ankoku showed Atsumu's smirk, though you could see the nervousness flowing out of his face. Ankoku was always sad but never tried to show it. He was never good with concealing his emotions. They would always flow out. He thinks no one notices. He's always gloomy, always in someone's shadow, and always wishes misfortune on others. Text me later. I have to go. See ya, dude. The door closed and Atsumu turned around to face Sakusa. Why'd you take it if you don't know how to play? Cause why know how? I'll record you playing it. That's fine. Yeah, sure. He didn't want to play it, not one bit. He only agreed with Atsumu because he thought any type of music sheet they got, Atsumu would play the notes. However, not everything goes the way you want it. They just had to get stuck with the one instrument Atsumu doesn't know how to play. Alright. Let's head to your house. Why? Not the one with the guitar. Atsumu can play a shitload of instruments but he doesn't own any. Sakusa sighed but soon nodded. The two started walking down the walkway of the house. Atsumu flipped the paper and looked at symbols shown on the sheet. It's much harder to read than any other sheet music. They really outdone themselves. Let me see. Atsumu moved the paper towards Sakusa. Sakusa looked down at the paper and his eyes widened. Sonata of Darkness. The one sheet music that is said to be composed by Satan himself. It is said that whoever performs or listens to it will be horribly cursed. When Sakusa heard what he getting into, he didn't think it was the most cursed fucking thing in the world of music. This isn't real, right? Course it isn't. Like I said, they probably wrote this. We just gotta record ourselves fucking rockin' it. Sakusa looked at the sheet, then up at Atsumu. His smile was bright as ever, letting some of the tenseness in his body fade away. However, he still felt uneasy. It looks pretty authentic though. Sakusa muttered under his breath. He didn't want Atsumu to think he was afraid. He wanted to be with Atsumu through everything. He wasn't going to let a rumor ruin how Atsumu looks at him. Huh? What you say, Omi-kun? It was nothing. Alrighty then. They soon arrived at Sakusa's household. As they were walking on the pathway, Sakusa started digging through his pockets looking for his keys. Seconds later, he pulled out his keys and unlocked the door. The two walked in with Atsumu closing and locking the door behind them. The both of them took off their shoes and made their way to Sakusa's room. Atsumu closed the door behind him and jumped onto Sakusa's bed. Comfy as always. Atsumu was literally rolling in Sakusa's bed, making himself comfortable. Meanwhile, Sakusa walked towards the small speaker and turned it down a bit, followed by picking up his guitar off the stand. Is your guitar a bass or electric? I literally can't remember. I've told you so many times. How could you forget? You're mean. Omi-kun, why no, I don't mean no harm. That's what they all say. I'm sorry. If you are, guess what I have? Atsumu looked at Sakusa, then at the guitar. He whined and plopped down on his stomach. A bass? Incorrect. Seriously. I can't believe you. I said I was sorry. Atsumu got up off the bed and jumped on Sakusa. He swung his arms around Sakusa's neck with the guitar in between them. Be careful. Atsumu moved more towards Sakusa, but while he was doing that, a folded paper slipped out of his pocket. Sakusa's eyes averted to the folded paper. Atsumu followed where Sakusa's eyes were going and looked to the side of him. Almost forgot about the music sheet. Atsumu let go of Sakusa. He picked the piece of paper up and unfolded it slowly. Now that he's really looking at it, the paper looks old, almost a blownish yellow color, not really a type of paper people would use. Let's start. Yeah? Let me just tune my guitar. Atsumu sat on the floor in front of Sakusa with his legs crossed. He quietly hummed to himself as he watched Sakusa fiddle with his guitar. Sakusa let out a nervous breath as he finished. Done? Here. Atsumu handed the folded sheet of paper to Sakusa with a grin on his face. Sakusa looked down at the music sheet whilst Atsumu fished his phone out of his pocket. Sakusa sat with his legs crossed with his guitar in his lap. He placed the sheet music on his left thigh and took a deep breath. Ready? Wait. Atsumu pressed the camera app and positioned the phone to capture Sakusa fully. Alright, I'm ready. Sakusa took a deep breath as his eyes scanned down the music sheet. He closed his eyes and reopened them seconds later. He was actually doing this. The pick brushed the guitar strings. The same exact moment Sakusa started playing the intro of the melody, the air became thicker. It was harder to breathe. His throat became tight. It was harder to breathe each second, but he still continued to play. His eyes averted towards Atsumu, who was still recording, but his eyes looked as if they were slowly closing and he was sweating uncontrollably. Sakusa's fingers stiffened, making it almost impossible for him to play. He dropped his guitar and hissed in pain. His fingers felt as if they were about to burn off. At the same exact moment Atsumu had hit the ground. Sakusa crawled over to him and put Atsumu in his arms. Atsumu. Answer me. Fuck. I knew this wasn't a good idea. Sakusa held Atsumu's body tight against his. His breaths became much louder and harder to take each second. The room felt like it was on fire. It was hot. Everything was. Each second that passed was a living nightmare. Not long after, something appeared before Sakusa's eyes. It was tall, seemingly on fire. The whole creature was on fire, from the feet to the head. Sakusa was looking at this thing when he noticed horns on its head. His eyes widened in fear. His body became stiff when he heard it talk. He was frozen in place. You shitty snort-nosed brats don't know when to stop. No worries. I love fucking people like you up. The most evil voice he had ever heard. It was straight from hell. The creature showed the largest grin Sakusa had ever seen. Let's start with making your lives hell on earth. With the snap of his fingers their lives were changed for eternity. You'll be bound together for eternity. Don't think killing each other will help. You're immortal. You cannot die even if you so desire it. Play music for the rest of your life or feel like you're on the brink of death each second. Hearing this made Sakusa's head spin. He didn't understand what he was hearing. Who the fuck is this thing to come in his house spitting up nonsense? But yet again he and Atsumu did the unthinkable. You're a little sinner like the rest of us in hell. He was so afraid it made him angry. He deeply cares for Atsumu. However, the both of them will never be the same. Sakusa always wanted to be next to Atsumu's side. Being bound to Atsumu made him feel hot inside, like Atsumu couldn't get rid of him no matter what. He was only angry that this bond had been created out of something negative, because there was a sinful act involved. Sakusa looked at this beast in horror. He held Atsumu's body tighter and closed his eyes. Tears started falling from his eyes as he felt the air become lighter and cooler. He opened his eyes and looked down at Atsumu. He was grateful Atsumu was okay, yet he was so furious. Why? Atsumu, why? With the little strength he had, he placed Atsumu sitting up against the side of his bed. Sakusa sat down beside Atsumu and placed his face in his hands. The curse was real and most importantly the music sheet was real. Sakusa didn't understand how Ankoku got his hands on it. It puzzled his mind. He couldn't even think rationally. His head just wouldn't let him. There were so many questions in his mind how that guy got his hands on the paper. Sakusa pulled at his hair in frustration. If Ankoku knew what that paper could have done he wouldn't have encouraged Atsumu to do it, let alone give him the actual paper. Ankoku wanted the both of them to suffer because he is suffering right now. Truth is, Ankoku's older brother had attained the music sheet. He played it and was cursed as well. In return for his sin he had to live the rest of his life without his limbs. Due to medical complications he had passed away. Ankoku's brother told him everything that had happened to him before he passed away. Ankoku investigated. He learned deep secrets about the curse and he wanted someone to feel the same pain and sorrow his brother did. He found targets that were foolish enough to do as he planned. Sakusa let out a shaky breath and started to close his eyes. He let the tiredness take over his body. Sakusa woke up to a scream. He flinched and sat up quickly. He groaned in pain when he moved. He ended up sleeping with his back against the wood of his bed. He slowly started to stand up when Atsumu ran into his room. What the hell is wrong with me? Full stop. What? What the hell do I mean what? Look at my fucking eyes. Sakusa looked up at Atsumu curiously and yawned. He walked over to Atsumu. He looked at Atsumu and saw nothing wrong. He thought was seeing things. What are you talking about? There is nothing wrong with your eyes. Atsumu looked up at Sakusa and looked at his eyes. Sakusa saw how his facial expression changed so quickly. You could see the fear in Atsumu's face. Sakusa rubbed his eyes again. He was still dazed, and he was extremely tired. He didn't remember anything from the night before. Atsumu wrapped his arm around Sakusa's and pulled him to the bathroom. Atsumu closed the door behind them and stood side by side with Sakusa facing the mirror. Do you not see this? Atsumu pointed at his left eye. Sakusa rubbed his eyes once again. He thought his eyes were just playing tricks on him. He turned Atsumu around and faced him. Please tell me my eyes are playing tricks on me. I see. The exact same thing you do. Sakusa's right eye looked like Atsumu's while Atsumu's left eye looked like Sakusa's. Atsumu looked at his face with disbelief. Though his and Sakusa's eyes looked partially the same, Sakusa's eyes were a tad bit more narrow than his. The only thing you couldn't miss was how the pupils of both Atsumu and Sakusa were visibly different sizes, not to mention the whole different color. Sakusa looked at his eyes closely. His skin started to itch. In his eyes he looked so unpleasant in his mind. He couldn't think of anything else to think of himself. In other words, he was speechless. The beautiful honey brown eyes were meant for Atsumu, not him. And Sakusa's eyes, where no one could make out the correct color, were meant for him, not Atsumu. Yet here they are, playing mix match with each other. Sakusa then realized why this was happening to them, because of the night previous. Atsumu seemed to catch on to Sakusa's change in expression. Do you understand what's happening? Dart. I do. Sakusa walked towards the bathroom door and opened it. Walking out of the room, he walked further into Atsumu's room and his eyes scanned the area. Once he found what he was looking for, he walked towards it and bent down. It was the music sheet. He was scared as fuck. Cold sweats fell from his face. He was still afraid. He slowly picked up the paper and stood up. This is the reason. Atsumu looked over Sakusa's shoulder. As soon as his and Sakusa's gaze were on the sheet of paper, there was a sudden text that appeared. The writing was red and hard to read. The letters looked like how people would write years ago. Like Old English, such as medieval letters. Get rid of the person that did this to you. Dispose of him. You've already sinned. Sakusa had read the text out loud. His eyes widened once he finished. Maybe if he put his foot down and said no, this would have happened. They really got themselves in deep shit. Sinned? Atsumu looked back at Sakusa with fear in his eyes. Sakusa looked at the latter. He didn't understand how Atsumu didn't know what this was all about, but he soon realized that Atsumu had passed out before the whole thing actually started. The music sheet was real. Meaning we were cursed. You passed out though. Atsumu bent down. He put a hand in his hair and pulled at it. He didn't believe he actually did this. He really thought the whole thing was a joke. If he actually did what his gut told him, he wouldn't have been in this situation. I messed up everything. I ruined your life. Atsumu didn't care about himself at the moment. All he cared about was Sakusa. He ruined his best friend's life because of his large pride. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sakusa sniffles coming from Atsumu. He bent down and made Atsumu face him. Atsumu looked at the other's face. Looking at all the fear he put into the latter, he scarred Sakusa for life. Atsumu broke into a crying fit. He couldn't even stop his tears. You didn't ruin my life. Sakusa used his sleeve to wipe Atsumu's tears. He really wanted to believe what had happened to them wouldn't ruin their futures tremendously. Don't lie to me. I'm not lying to you. Why say that? There is no way that I didn't. I just told you I didn't I? The curse was to play music for the rest of our lives. I already like playing music, so tell me, how is my life ruined? Full stop. Atsumu held onto Sakusa's clothing and buried his face in Sakusa's shoulder. He was so thankful for Sakusa, even after all the idiotic things he dragged the latter in. I don't deserve you. Of course you do. Sit down. I'll explain everything that happened. Sakusa started with when he started playing, and how the room was so incredibly hot. Also how it was hard to breathe. He continued with saying how Atsumu passed out so suddenly. He carried on with saying what he saw, about the monster that cursed their lives. He told Atsumu everything that was said except for the part about the two being bound together. He didn't want Atsumu to be stuck with him if Atsumu didn't want it. He wanted Atsumu to live his life. Sakusa didn't want to be the reason why Atsumu doesn't have a good life. He and Atsumu have to play music or they'll be living in their worst lives. Being with Atsumu and playing music was enough for him, at the moment. Did I really cause all of that? I'll be honest. You did. Atsumu looked at Sakusa and tears started falling out his eyes. He had to accept he ruined many things, including his and Sakusa's lives. But that doesn't mean we can't move on, right? Come on, get up. Sakusa took Atsumu's hands and pulled him up. There is no reason to dwell on the past. This is just something to get over. Atsumu looked at Sakusa. He never knew Sakusa was like this. He was so responsible, more than he comes off as. Sakusa knew how to handle and accept stuff. This made Atsumu look at Sakusa differently. Thank you. Sakusa calmed Atsumu down successfully. However, he was still so shaken up on the inside. He wanted Atsumu to believe he was completely calm, but it was only the opposite. He was freaking out on the inside, but he wouldn't be the cool one if he panicked. He and Atsumu checked the house to make sure no one was inside. Fortunately, Sakusa's mother had not arrived at home yet, so it had only been him and Atsumu in the house. Thank fuck. Now, we should go out and buy contacts. Contacts? Have you forgotten? Our eyes. Right. Dash. The two left the house both wearing sunglasses. In winter. They decided to go to the local drugstore for colored contacts. On the way there, the walk was silent with the duo both in their own thoughts. They soon arrived, but as soon as they stepped foot inside, they were getting weird looks from people inside the stores. Sakusa was wearing his black mask with black sunglasses, and all his clothing was black. What Atsumu was wearing was close to what Sakusa's was, just instead he was wearing a grey jacket. You could have dropped the mask, Omi. Atsumu shouted in a whisper and elbowed Sakusa lightly. Sakusa made them look like robbers. No. Dirty people. Jeez. Atsumu walked in front and went towards the section where the non-prescription colored contacts were, but lucky for them, they were stopped. Excuse me. Atsumu turned around, his eyes averted down a bit. The security was shorter than him but looked stronger. Yes sir? Why are you wearing sunglasses? It's winter. I have an eye condition. And the guy with the mask? He's sick. Why'd that sound like a question? He's just not a fan of stuff that aren't clean. Why no? See more know me. Atsumu turned around and wrapped his hand around Scorsa's forearm. As they were about to walk away, the security guard called out to them. Show me your condition, boy. Atsumu turned slowly and looked at the latter with a raised eyebrow. What? You heard me. Do it or I'll throw you out the store. Atsumu sighed and pulled his sunglasses down. The guard looked at Atsumu's eyes and his own eyes widened. He had never seen someone with what he guessed was anisocoria. Atsumu pupils were larger than Sakusa's, and the different eye color really stood out. The guard didn't utter a word. Atsumu took that as a good opportunity to leave. He pushed his sunglasses back up and pulled Sakusa to the other aisle. You weren't embarrassed? Sakusa pulled down his mask as he spoke. Atsumu looked up at him and smiled. Like Sakusa had said, this was just something else in their lives to get through. I'm not. This is just something to get through. I'm glad you look at it that way. The both of them stopped in front of the color contacts and started looking at all the variety of colors. They found an eye color that was identical to Atsumu, yet none were similar to Sakusa's. That'll do for now. Are you sure? My eye color doesn't really fit here. I rather not have two different colored eyes. And the contacts won't make my pupils look different. Good point. Right, okay. They cashed out and made their way back to Sakusa's house. And yet again the walk back and silent. Once they got back, they were greeted by Sakusa's mother. Where have you two been? I haven't seen you since yesterday. The school called to tell me that you weren't there today. Right. Sakusa forgot to check the time when he woke up. It must have woken him just when school was finishing. The talk with Atsumu took a while and the trip to the school and back. But he in all honesty didn't remember locking his door when Atsumu and him first went into his room. Sorry mom. Me and Atsumu fell asleep. Then why was your room door closed? You always have it open. Are you hiding something? I'm not. Sakusa brushed past his mom. Atsumu bowed and quickly followed Sakusa up the stairs to his room. His mom shook her head. She knew many things were going on with her son, but she just didn't know how to talk to him. Her son is so unapproachable now. Atsumu followed Sakusa into his room and closed the door behind him. He followed Sakusa to the bathroom that was connected. Atsumu placed the plastic bag down on the counter and took the only object out. He opened the box of contacts and stared at it. He took the little container out and opened the lid. The color looked exactly like his eyes. Put them in. Atsumu took one contact out of the container. He pushed his body over the counter towards the mirror and slowly placed the contact in. He blinked a few times before opening his eyes and looked at his eyes in the mirror. They looked so much like they used to. Your eyes look the same as always. Sakusa followed what Atsumu did and looked at himself in the mirror. He didn't really think the eye color suited him. Looks great, Omi. You really think so? Thanks. Sakusa looked at himself then looked away. He felt a lot of emotions, fear being the largest. He wanted to express his feelings without actually talking about them. He wanted to make a song with Atsumu. Atsumu looked at Sakusa and his lips curved into a small smile. Yeah? Promise me this. Promise me we'll be the biggest singers ever. Atsumu knew Sakusa wanted to be a musician, someone that makes people feel emotions through his music. Sakusa had never expressed it much, he just did what he wanted. Atsumu wanted to follow and support Sakusa with his dream. I promise. Time skip. 7 years. Over time Sakusa and Atsumu were getting noticed for their songs. People started noticing them on the streets. Unlike before, no one cared. The duo started writing songs soon after they were cursed. They decided to finish school before starting their music career. They made plenty of songs that were not released. It just wasn't right to them. They've been through a lot, and they've barely separated during 7 years. They never cared about how Ankoku gave them the music sheet. They've moved on. When the both of them fully grown up, they realized they've barely changed. Their bodies changed but not much. During this time Atsumu had gotten the truth out of Sakusa, about how he and Atsumu are bound together for eternity. Atsumu had found out the first year they started publishing music. Atsumu was sexually frustrated. Whenever Sakusa would get close or tease him, he felt aroused. He just thought how he really hasn't been near many people, in which he thought the reason was just that. He was also upset with Sakusa. He felt like Sakusa was ignoring him to write songs or fool around with his guitar. He picked up a random girl, who didn't know who he was. Having sexual intercourse with the one girl felt like hell. He was in pain. His body felt like it was on fire. He didn't even last 2 minutes. Atsumu stayed away from other people and used other methods. Sakusa caught him in a heated session with himself, and that day his lust was satisfied. He also learned how he was bound to Sakusa. Sakusa is the only one that can satisfy him without any pain involved. They've started dating after the incident. Sakusa confessed how he loved Atsumu for so long but kept quiet. He even slighted himself more after the both of them were cursed. He wanted Atsumu to live the way he wanted and not because a curse was forcing him into things he didn't want. You ready? You bet. The whole world will know us. Both of them were backstage, getting ready to perform their biggest song at almost 400 million views on YouTube. Sakusa's dream became huge, and along the way Sakusa's dream became Atsumu's dream as well. They named themselves opposite. Their personalities are completely different from the others and it fits them. The two of them always wear a black blindfold over their eyes. It's not that they are scared to show their eyes. They love the fact they have each other's eyes, therefore they have the blindfold on as a reminder. Kiss. Sakusa smiled and moved his guitar to the side. He rubbed his hand on Atsumu's cheek gently and gave him a peck on the lips. I love you so much. I love you too. This is the place where the whole world will know them from. Happy 1-year anniversary.